Good morning, everybody. Hope that your Wednesday is good. I am pre-recording this, so when I'm recording it, it's Monday. But when you're watching, it's Wednesday, and I hope your day is off to a good start. I'm in my outdoor office, and it is just a glorious morning, and drinking out of a new mug here. That script that looks like it might be from Mars is Hebrew word shalom. It's a wonderful Hebrew word that we normally translate as peace, but it does means a little more than peace. It really has connotations of wholeness, completeness, fullness. So, as I've been doing for the last several weeks, I've been on Wednesday mornings just looking a little bit at the various denominations, the various churches that you see as you ride around town, whether you're here in Hamlet or somewhere else. And we've looked at the Roman Catholic Church and the Orthodox tradition, Lutherans, Presbyterians, the Anglican/Episcopal churches, Baptist, last week Quakers, and today I'll be looking at the Methodist Church. And when I say Methodist, the broader Methodist tradition. There are several different Methodist churches in the United States. By far the largest is the United Methodist Church. I'm a pastor in that denomination, but there's also the Free Methodist, Southern Methodist, and now the Global Methodist Church. Beyond that, you have some African American Methodist denominations, AME Zion churches, and then several other churches that have Wesleyan roots. The Wesleyan Church, the Church of the Nazarene, and really I could go on. So this is the broader Methodist tradition. So within my own tent, the United Methodist Church is a really big tent. In terms of theological perspectives and even worship styles, it's a really big tent. Within that big tent, I probably am more on the conservative side of that really big tent, but that's just who I am. So the origins of Methodism, they go back to John and Charles Wesley in the 1700s. In the 1740s, 1730s really, they're both students at Oxford, studying in divinity to be priests in the Anglican Church, and they formed what was called the Holy Club, along with several friends, most notably George Whitefield, who became really, really influential in the First Great Awakening. They formed this Holy Club where they met, regularly to study, to pray together, take communion. They covenanted to fast twice a week, and they were very methodical in how they lived out their holiness. And the term Methodist was applied to them originally as derogatory term, and not as something that to be praised. They were Methodists because of how methodical they went about their holiness. From the outset, the Methodist tradition has been a real blend of both head and heart, a blend of evangelism and social justice. Some historians argue that, and I haven't researched it enough to be able to have my own opinion on it, but some historians argue that if not for the Wesleyan movement, that England in the 1700s could have had a revolution just as France did. France, as you probably know, had a really bloody, disastrous revolution late in the 1700s. Methodists, by tradition, probably have always hedged more towards the experiential aspect of the faith. That's just who we are by tradition. That's not like every Methodist ever has felt that way, but as a tradition, we probably hedge a little more towards the experiential aspects of the faith over the theoretical. By tradition, we don't have a great deep bench of theological heavyweights. There are Methodists who are great systematic theologians, but that's not our forte. On the other hand, we've got a really great bench of great preachers. Methodists make great preachers. I don't claim to be one of them, by the way. Every time I listen to somebody else preach, I realize that there's somebody else is better than I am. Methodists do make great preachers, and by tradition, Methodists love to sing. That is almost a stereotype. We do love to sing. The Methodist movement spread really fast in England and also in the United States, and we really took off and thrived in the revivalism of the 1800s. And one of the things that, probably the thing, which accounts for how fast the movement spread, is the way we used what we today call small groups. But originally, they were the class meeting. The class meeting, the band meeting, those two different types of distinctively Wesleyan small groups. Wesley was really big on this idea that our faith is to be lived out in community. Now, I'll give you a quote. Holy solitaries is a phrase no more consistent with the gospel than holy adulterers. The gospel of Christ knows no religion but social, no holiness but social holiness. And social holiness here is not so much social justice, as in we live out our faith by, marching in protest of this cause or protest for a cause. No, social holiness, as Wesley intended it, was communal holiness. I mean, we are to be holy in how we live. And the way to be holy in how we live is to live out our holiness together. And the organization of the Methodist movement into class meetings and band meetings was the secret sauce. That was the ingredient. So some of the theological distinctives of a Methodist church, if you aren't familiar with who we are, how we worship, as with most Protestants, we will baptize, as with most Christians, don't know I could say most Protestants, we happily baptize infants and small children of believers, and we will baptize by any one of the three historic methods, sprinkling, pouring, or immersion. We practice an open communion. In fact, Wesley was pretty adamant that someone could be converted at the table. He would have said that you need to come with the right heart. So if you are a hardened atheist and ridiculing the faith, you probably don't need to come for Wesley. But if you're at least curious, if your heart is in some way open, he believed that you could be converted at the table. So we do have an open communion. Methodists of all stripes will happily ordain women, and that's something that we've done we've been doing that for decades now, so that's not even an issue for us, which is a good thing. One of the things which will set us apart from our Reformed brethren is that we do Wesley couldn't buy into predestination. He just couldn't do it. There are numerous ways in which Wesley and Calvin would have found themselves in agreement, though they were separated by history by a couple of hundred years. There are several ways they would have been in agreement. They were very similar in how they conceived of baptism and Holy Communion. They would have been relatively similar in depravity, human depravity, but the fly in the ointment was predestination. John Wesley just couldn't go there, and so Methodists, we have never been predestinarian. Methodists have always been more free will. We are not it is not predetermined who is going to be saved, and also we acknowledge that it is possible that someone can walk away from the faith. So with us as Methodists, our churches by tradition do love to sing. We love good preaching. And by the way, we love a good covered dish supper. I think Garrison Keeler has talked about that as being a sacrament in the Methodist Church. By the way, we do have two sacraments, the communion and baptism, and that puts us in league with Lutherans and Presbyterians and Episcopalians. We have the same two sacraments as every other Protestant church, Baptist, even though they may not use the term sacrament. So with that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and if you want to learn more about how Methodist Church operates, come visit me in Hamlet. Have a good one.